This is Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Chapter 2. Zhang Fei whips the government inspector. Imperial in-law He Jin plots against the eunuchs. Governor of Hedong, Dong Zhuo, styled Zhongying, a native of Lintao in Longxi in the far northwest, was a man to whom arrogance came naturally. His rude treatment of Zhenda had provoked Zhang Fei to turn back and seek satisfaction, but Zhenda and Lord Guan warned their brother. He holds the court's mandate. You cannot take the law into your own hands.
If we don't do away with the wretch, Fei retorted, we'll be taking orders from him. The last thing I could stand. You two stay if you like. I'm leaving.
We three, sworn to live and die as one, said Zhenda, must not part. We'll go elsewhere.
Where are we going then?
Responded Zhang Fei.
That's some consolation.
Riding all night, the three warriors reached the camp of Zhu Jun, the imperial corps commander, who welcomed them heartily and united their forces with his own. Together they advanced against the second rebel brother, Zhang Bao. The third brother, Zhang Liang, was battling Cao Cao and Huang Fusong at Chuyang at that time. Zhang Bao had command of 80 or 90,000 troops camped beside a mountain. Zhu Jun sent Zhenda forward, and Zhang Bao dispatched his lieutenant Gao Sheng to taunt the government forces. Zhenda waved Zhang Fei into combat, and he charged and ran Gao Sheng through after a few brief clashes. Sheng toppled from his horse, and Zhenda signaled for his men to advance. Zhang Bao, on horseback, unbound hair and sword in hand, began to work a magic formula. As throngs of Zhenda's soldiers charged, a thunderstorm started to gather, and a black mist surrounded what seemed like an army of warriors in the sky. When the apparition plunged towards them, the men were thrown into confusion. Zhenda hurried back to camp to report defeat. They were using shamanistic tricks, said Zhu Jun. Tomorrow we will slaughter a pig, a goat, and a dog, and throw down on the rebels a mixture of the animal's blood, entrails, and excrement. Zhenda placed Lord Guan and Zhang Fei each with 1,000 men in ambush high on a slope of the hill, ready to hurl down the abominable preparation when Zhang Bao's troops passed. The next day, with banners waving and drums rolling, Zhang Bao arrived in force. Zhenda rode out to face him. As the soldiers prepared to engage in battle, Bao used his powers and a storm sprang up as before. Sand and stones went flying, and a murky mist packed with men and horses began to descend from the sky. Zhenda wheeled and fled, drawing Bao in pursuit past the hill. At the signal, Lord Guan and Zhang Fei dumped their concoction over the enemy. In front of everyone's eyes, the storm died away, and the mist dissolved as paper men and straw horses tumbled from the sky every which way. Sand and stone lay still. Seeing his craft undone, Bao retreated quickly, but Lord Guan came forth on his left and Zhang Fei on his right, while Zhenda and Zhu Jun raced up behind. Between these converging forces, the rebels were crushed. Zhenda spotted Bao's General of Earth banner some distance away and gave chase. Bao rode frantically for the brush, but Zhenda shot an arrow through his left arm. The wounded rebel sought shelter in the city of Yang, to which Zhu Jun at once laid siege. Zhu Jun also sent for news of Huang Fusong's battle with Zhang Bao's brother, Liang, and received the following message. Huang Fusong won a great victory, and the court used him to replace the oft-defeated Dong Zhuo. Song arrived to find the chief rebel, Jiao, dead, and Liang, who had taken over his command, locked in battle with our own units. Song won 7 battles in succession. He killed Liang at Chuyang. Then they opened up Jiao's coffin, mutilated the corpse, and impaled his head, which they later sent to the capital. The surviving rebels gave themselves up, and the court rewarded Song with the title of General of Chariots and Cavalry, and appointed him Protector of Zizhou. Song then petitioned the emperor, stating that Lu Zhi's conduct was meritorious, not blameworthy, and the court restored his former office. Cao Cao's service, too, was recognized, and he was awarded a fief at Jinan. When I left, they were about to return to the capital in triumph before assuming their new posts. This was heartening to Zhu Jun, and he pressed the siege harder. The rebels' position became critical. Finally, Zhang Bao was slain by Yang Zhen, one of his own commanders, who then surrendered with his leader's head. The battle won, Zhu Jun pacified several neighboring districts and reported to the throne. Meanwhile, 3 other rebel leaders, Zhao Hong, Han Zhong, and Sun Zhong, gathered tens of thousands of followers to avenge their fallen master, Zhang Jiao, by new acts of plunder and destruction. The court summoned Zhu Jun to punish them with his victorious units. Bearing the imperial command, Zhu Jun advanced on the rebel-held city of Wancheng. Zhao Hong sent Han Zhong to engage Zhu Jun's army. Zhu Jun ordered Zhenda and his brothers to attack the southwest corner of the city wall. Han Zhong rushed to its defense with seasoned troops. Zhu Jun personally led 2,000 hardened cavalry directly to the northeast corner. Fearful of losing the city, the rebels quickly withdrew from their southwest position. Zhenda beset their rear, and the horde, badly defeated, fled into the city. Zhu Jun responded by dividing his force and surrounding Wancheng. The city was short of food, and Han Zhong offered to surrender, but Zhu Jun refused his offer. Zhenda argued for accepting. Gao Zu, founder of the Han, won the empire because he knew how to invite surrender and how to receive it. Why refuse their offer, my lord? That was then, Zhu Jun replied. Now is now. Before Han, the empire was convulsed with uprisings against Qin, and there was no established sovereign for the people to acknowledge. To welcome submission and reward allegiance was no doubt the way to attract adherents. But this land of ours enjoys unity today. It is only the yellow scarves who have resorted to arms. If we accept their surrender, how will we encourage loyal and decent men? If we allow those who pillage at will when they win to give themselves up when they lose, we will give an incentive to subversion. A rather poor idea, I'd say. You are right, Zhenda conceded, to deny an appeal from these criminals. And yet, trapped like this in an iron grip, they can only fight to the last. A myriad of single-minded men cannot be withstood, let alone desperados at several times that number. We could pull back from the southeast and concentrate on the northwest. The rebels will flee the city, and, having lost their taste for combat, they can quickly be captured. Zhu Jun acted on Zhenda's suggestion, and the rebel Han Zhong, as expected, led his soldiers in headlong flight from Wancheng. Zhu Jun, joined by Zhenda and his two brothers, attacked them in full force. Han Zhong was killed with an arrow shot. The survivors scattered, but as the government forces were mopping up, the battle took another turn. Zhao Hong and Sun Zhong arrived and engaged Jun, who retreated before the unexpected show of strength. The Yellow Scarves retook Wancheng. Zhu Jun removed 10 li and was preparing to counterattack when he saw a mass of soldiers coming from the east. At their head was a man of broad forehead and wide face, with a body powerful as a tiger's and a torso thick as a bear's. This man, from Fuchun in the imperial district of Wu, was named Sun Jian, his style Wentai. He was descended from the famous strategist Sun Tzu. Years before, when Sun Jian was 17, he and his father watched a dozen pirates seize a merchant's goods and divide the spoils on the shore of the Qiantang River. Jian said to his father, "Let's take them prisoner." Sword bared, Jian leaped shore and confronted the thieves, gesturing left and right as if signaling his followers. Fooled into thinking government troops were nearby, the thieves left their loot and fled, except for the one whom Jian killed. This is how he made a name for himself in the region and was recommended for the post of commandant. Some time after Sun Jian's appointment, one Shu Chang of Kuaiji revolted, titling himself Sun Emperor and mobilizing tens of thousands of men. Jian and a district commanding officer recruited 1,000 fighters and rallied the province's districts. Together they destroyed the rebels and killed Shu Chang and his son Shao. The imperial inspector of the province, Zhang Min, reported Sun Jian's achievements to the emperor, and Jian was promoted to deputy magistrate of Yandu, Shu Yi, and Xiapi. In response to the risings of the Yellow Scarves, Sun Jian gathered young men from his village, as well as many traders and experienced soldiers from the area of the Huai and Si rivers, some 1,500 in all, and went to aid the embattled Zhu Jun at Wancheng. Thus reinforced, Zhu Jun ordered Jian to attack the south gate and Zhenda to attack the north. Zhu Jun himself lay siege on the west, giving the rebels a way out only on the east. Sun Jian was the first to gain the city wall, where he cut down 20 men and threw the rebels into confusion. Zhao Hong brandished his lance and made for Sun Jian, but Jian flung himself on the attacker, wrested away the lance, and ran him through. Then, taking Hong's horse, he charged the swarming rebels and slew many. Sun Zhong and his rebel force tried to break through the north gate, only to encounter Zhenda, before whom Zhong fled in panic. Zhenda felled him with a single arrow. Zhu Jun's main force then set upon the rebels from behind. Tens of thousands were beheaded, and untold numbers gave themselves up. Throughout the Nanyang area, more than 10 imperial districts were pacified. Zhu Jun returned in triumph to the capital, where he was raised to the rank of general of chariots and cavalry and appointed governor of Henan. As governor, he reported to the throne the merits of Sun Jian and Zhenda. Profiting from his connections, Jian obtained a post as an auxiliary district commanding officer and went at once to assume his new office. Only Zhenda was left waiting many days, receiving no word of appointment. Disheartened, the three brothers were walking in the capital when they came upon the carriage of the courtier Zhang Jun. Zhenda presented himself and gave a brief account of his victories. Zhang Jun was surprised that the court had neglected such a man, and at his next audience with the emperor said, "Sale of office and rank by the 10 eunuchs is a fundamental cause of the recent uprisings. They have appointed only their own and punished only their enemies, and have thrown the realm into chaos in the process. For peace to prevail, it would behoove your majesty to execute the 10, hang their severed heads outside the south gate of the capital, and proclaim to all the empire that hereafter merit will be rewarded." The eunuchs counterattacked, accusing Zhang Jun of less majesty. The emperor resolved the dispute by ordering his guards to expel Zhang Jun from court. The eunuchs continued discussing this matter. "This complaint," they agreed, "must have come from some deserving warrior we passed over. It might be useful to have the central office review some of the lesser ones for appointment. We will have time enough to deal with them afterwards." And so Zhenda was appointed judicial officer of Anxi County in the Zhongshan jurisdiction of Dingzhou Imperial District, with orders to depart on a specified date. Zhenda disbanded his troops and set out with his brothers and some 24 followers. In Anxi, he avoided all injury to the interests of the local people, and civic morality improved within a month. While in office, Zhenda shared bed and board with his brothers, and they stood beside him throughout long public sessions. In a few months' time, however, the court decreed a purge of leading officials whose posts had been awarded in recognition of military service, a measure Zhenda suspected would lead to his removal. Just then, a district inspector came to Anxi, one of the counties under his jurisdiction. Zhenda received the officer outside the city with full honors, but the inspector remained mounted, reciprocating Zhenda's salutation with a faint flick of his whip. Zhang Fei and Lord Guan seethed with resentment. At the post house, the inspector seated himself upon a raised platform and faced south like an emperor holding court, while Zhenda stood respectfully at the foot of the platform. After an extended wait, the official spoke. "Tell me about your background, Officer Liu." "I am a descendant of Prince Jing of Zhongshan," replied Zhenda. "I began campaigning against the Yellow Scarves in Zhou County and have destroyed many of them, achieving some slight merit in over 30 engagements, some small, some large. As a result, I was appointed to this post." "Isn't your claim of imperial ancestry a lie?" roared the inspector. "Like those phony reports of your achievements? I have here in hand the court's decree purging such undeserving officials and corrupt officers as you." Zhenda could only back away, humbly voicing his agreement. Yes, sir," he said, and returned to the yamen to consult with another officer. "The inspector is creating a scene," the latter suggested, "only because he wants a bribe." "But I have never taken advantage of the people here," Zhenda argued, "and have acquired nothing of value to give him." The following day, the inspector sent for the county officer and pressured him into accusing Officer Liu of abusing the people. Every time Zhenda tried to see the inspector to justify himself, the guards turned him away. After comforting himself with a few cups of wine, Zhang Fei rode by the post house. At the door, he saw dozens of elderly folk weeping and wailing. When Zhang Fei asked the reason, they said, "The inspector is forcing the county officer to make statements that will enable him to get rid of our Lord Liu. We have come to plead for him, but cannot get inside." The guards beat us back for our pains." Zhang Fei's eyes widened with anger. Jaw set, he slid from his saddle and went straight to the post house, broke through the guard, and dashed to the rear. He saw the inspector holding formal session and the county officer, bound on the ground.
"Plague to the people! Do you know me?"
Before the inspector could open his mouth, Zhang Fei had him by the hair, dragged him to the front of the post house, and tied him to the hitching post. Then, with some light switches stripped from a nearby willow, he whipped the inspector across the legs so soundly that a dozen of the switches split. Xuande, having been kept from the inspector's presence, could not tell what was going on. Then he heard the commotion outside the post house and was told, "Commander Chang is beating the life out of somebody there." Xuande found out who the victim was and, aghast, went to demand an explanation from Zhang Fei.
"This enemy of the people should be beaten to death," his brother said, "and the sooner the better."
But the inspector pleaded, "Let me live, my good lord." And Xuande, a kind-hearted sort when all was said and done, shouted to Zhang Fei to desist. At this moment Lord Guan turned up. "Brother, your great service has been ill rewarded with this miserable post. Add that to this inspector's insults. Does a phoenix belong in a briar patch? Let's kill him, resign this office, and go home to plan for a better day." At these words, Xuande took his seal and cord of office and hung them on the inspector's neck, saying, "For the harm you've caused the people, we should have your life. However, we shall spare you. You may take these back, and I shall take my leave." The inspector returned to Dingzhou and reported the incident to the governor, who in turn notified higher central and regional authorities in order to have the brothers arrested. But the wanted men found refuge in Daizhou with Liu Hui, who hid them in his home in consideration of Xuande's imperial lineage. Meanwhile, at the court, the 10 eunuchs were using their great power to do away with anyone who went against them. Zhao Zhong and Zhang Rang demanded payment of gold and silk from all who had won distinction fighting the Yellow Scarves, and removed from office those who would not pay. In consequence, commanders Huang Fusong and Zhu Jun were deprived of office. The emperor added the rank of general of chariots and cavalry to Zhao Zhong's other honors and awarded lordships to Zhang Rang and the 12 others. Administration worsened and the people grumbled. O Xing staged an uprising in Changsha. In Yuyang, Zhang Zhu and Zhang Qun rebelled, Zhang Zhu claiming to be the emperor and Zhang Qun his marshal. The court was swamped with emergency appeals from every quarter of the land, but the 10 blithely filed them away and never informed the throne. One day, the emperor and the 10 were feasting in the rear garden when Liu Tao, a court counselor, came before the sovereign and began weeping passionately. The emperor requested an explanation, and Liu Tao replied, "With the emperor in peril, how can your majesty continue feasting with these capons?" "Why, our nation is as peaceful as ever," the emperor said. "What peril do you have in mind?" "Bandits and rebels rise everywhere," responded Liu Tao, "plundering province and district, all because of the sale of office and abuse by the people of the 10 eunuchs, who have wronged and deceived your majesty. All upright men have fled your service. Disaster looms." At this indictment, the 10 threw down their caps and prostrated themselves. "If Counselor Liu Tao cannot tolerate us," they cried, "we are done for. We beg only our lives and your permission to return to our farms. Everything we own will be donated to the army." Then they wept freely. The emperor turned to the court counselor. "You have your attendants. Should I not have mine?" He ordered the guards to march Liu Tao out and behead him. "I care not for my life," cried Tao, "but how my heart aches for the empire of Han, on the verge of extinction, after 400 years. The guards had removed him and were about to execute him when a high officer checked them with a shout, "Stay your hand until I make my plea." The assembly saw that it was Minister of Interior Chen Dan, coming directly to the palace to place his objections before the emperor. "What fault of Consular Liu's deserves such punishment?" he asked. "He slanders our close attendants," said the emperor, "and sullies our person. These eunuchs whom you honor like parents," said the minister, "the people would eat you alive if they could. They are raised to lordships without the least merit, to say nothing of the traitors among them, like Feng Shu, who colluded with the Yellow Scarves. If your majesty will not consider this, the sacred shrines of your royal house could fall at any moment." The emperor said, "Feng Shu's role in the rebellion was never proven. As for the 10 eunuchs, do you mean to tell me there isn't a single one who is loyal?" Chen Dan emphasized his protest by striking his head against the steps of the throne. The indignant emperor had him dragged off and thrown into prison beside Liu Tao. That night, the eunuchs had 200 officials murdered. They forged an official decree making Sun Jian governor of Changsha, while a commission to put down the rebellion of Ou Xing. Within 50 days, Sun Jian reported victory and the Jiangxia region was secured. A decree enfeoffed Sun Jian as lord of Wuchang and made Liu Yu protector of Youzhou. Liu Yu launched a campaign against Zhang Zhu and Zhang Qun in Yuyang, and Liu Hui of Daizhou wrote the new protector recommending Zhenda, whom he had sheltered. Liu Yu was delighted and appointed Zhenda district commander. Zhenda took the battle straight to the bandits' lair. In several days' hard fighting, Zhenda beat down the impetuous spirit of the rebels, who then turned upon Zhang Qun, their violent and autocratic leader. He was killed by one of his own chieftains, who brought Qun's head to the government authorities and surrendered with his soldiers. Zhang Zhu, his position collapsing, hanged himself. Now Yuyang too was fully pacified. Protector Liu Yu reported Zhenda's great service to the court. Not only was he forgiven for having flogged the inspector, but he was promoted to deputy magistrate of Xiami and made judicial officer of Gaotang. Gongsun Zan added his praise of Zhenda's former service. On his recommendation, Zhenda was made an auxiliary corps commanding officer and assigned to Pingyuan County as magistrate. At Pingyuan, Zhenda had considerable resources and manpower at his disposal and was able to re-establish the atmosphere of former days. Liu Yu, for his great service in quelling the bandits, was made Grand Commandant. In the 4th month of the 6th year of the Zhou Ping reign, Emperor Ling fell gravely ill and called for Regent He Jin to make plans for the succession. He Jin was from a butcher's family and had attained his powerful position only through the influence of his younger sister, Lady He, a royal concubine who, on giving birth to a son, Bian, had become Empress He. Emperor Ling had a second favorite wife, Beauty Wang. Lady Wang, too, bore a son, and Empress He, out of jealousy, poisoned her. The child, Xie, was raised in the palace of the emperor's mother, Dong. Queen Mother Dong was the wife of Liu Chang, lord of Jiedu Precinct. Because Huan, the previous emperor, had no male issue, Liu Chang's son was made heir apparent and became Emperor Ling upon the death of Huan. When Ling succeeded to the throne, his mother was taken into the palace and honored as Queen Mother. In the matter of Ling's heir apparent, Queen Mother Dong urged the emperor to name Xie, son of the murdered concubine Wang, over Bian, son of Empress He. The emperor himself was disposed to make this change as he was partial to Prince Xie. As Emperor Ling's end drew near, the eunuch Jian Shou advised him, "If it is your majesty's wish that Prince Xie, not Prince Bian, follow you on the throne, first get rid of Regent He Jin, Bian's uncle, to forestall countermeasures." Emperor Ling took his advice and commanded He Jin to appear. He Jin arrived at the palace gate, but there was warned by the commanding officer, Pan Yin, not to enter, because Jian Shou meant to kill him. He Jin fled to his quarters and summoned the minister and high officers to consider executing all the eunuchs. To this drastic step, one man rose to object. "The influence of the eunuchs goes back to the reigns of Emperors Chong and Zhi. Now they have overrun the court. How can we kill each and every one of them? If discovered, we will be killed and our clans exterminated. Pray consider this thoroughly." Regent Marshal He Jin regarded the man. It was Cao Cao, commandant of military standards. "What do you know of court matters?" said Jin, turning disdainfully to Cao. The problem was still under discussion when commanding officer Pan Ying brought the news of the emperor's demise. "Jin Shou and the eunuchs," he informed He Jin, "plan to keep the death a secret. They have forged a decree summoning you to the palace and expect to have their way by eliminating you before declaring Prince Xie emperor." The group had not yet reached a decision when the court's messenger came commanding He Jin's immediate appearance to resolve all pending issues. "Today, before all else, we must rectify the succession," cried Cao Cao, "and then we can take care of the traitors." "Who will join me," asked He Jin, "in supporting the legitimate heir, Prince Bien, and bringing the traitors to justice?" "Give me 5,000 crack troops," one official spoke up, "and I will march into the palace, enthrone the rightful emperor, destroy the eunuchs, and purge the court, thus restoring peace to the land." He eyed the speaker. It was Yuan Shao, styled Ben Chu, son of former Minister of the Interior Yuan Feng, nephew of Yuan Wei. At that time, Shao was commander of the capital districts. He Jin, gratified by the offer, assigned 5,000 of his royal guard to Yuan Shao's command. Yuan Shao girded himself for battle. With He Jin in the lead, He Yu, Xun You, Zheng Tai, and some 30 other high officials filed into the palace. There, before the coffin of Emperor Ling, they placed He Jin's nephew, Prince Bien, on the throne as Ling's successor, Emperor Shao. When shouts of allegiance from the assembled officers died down, Yuan Shao entered the palace to arrest Jian Shou. Jian Shou fled to the royal garden and hid himself. But Guo Sheng, one of the 10, found and killed him, and the palace guard, which Jian Shou had commanded, all surrendered. Yuan Shao said to He Jin, "These units have organized their own gang. But today the tide turns with us. Let's kill every last one." Zhang Ran and his group of 10 eunuchs, realizing that their end was near, rushed to see Empress He, sister of Regent Marshal He Jin. "Jian Shou and Jian Shou alone," they commanded her, "tried to kill your brother the regent. Not one of us was involved. But Yuan Shao has won the regent over and is bent on doing away with all of us. Have pity, your majesty." Empress He, whose son Bien had just been enthroned, said, "Have no fear. I shall protect you." She ordered He Jin before her and spoke to him privately. "You and I are humbly born and could not enjoy the wealth and status we have today except for Zhang Rang and the 10. Jian Shou has paid for his crime. Don't listen to those who want to kill them all." Thus admonished, He Jin came out and addressed the assembly. "Jian Shou tried to murder me. Now he is dead, and his clan will be destroyed. There is no need to punish the rest." "If we don't root them out for good," objected Yuan Shao, "we will pay for it with our lives." "The decision is made," He Jin insisted. "Let no more be said." With that, the assembly retired. The following day, Empress He ordered He Jin to supervise the work of Imperial Secretariat, which issues decrees, and the Regent Marshal's associates were granted official positions. Now the rival Empress Dong, mother of the late Emperor Ling and guardian of Prince Xie, summoned Zhang Rang of the 10 eunuchs. "I was the one who first helped Empress He. Now her son reigns over all officialdom, inside and outside the court. Her power is great. What are we to do?" "Your Majesty," replied Rang, "control the courts from behind the scene, preside over administration, have the imperial son Xie enfeoffed as a prince, have high office conferred on your brother, the imperial uncle, see that he gets real military power, use us in important ways, and we can aim higher soon enough." Immensely pleased with this advice, Empress Dong held court the following day, and issued a decree naming Xie as Prince of Chenliu, and imperial uncle Dong Chong as general of flying cavalry. Zhang Rang and the eunuchs were again permitted to participate in court affairs. Empress He, seeing her rival gather power, arranged a banquet in the palace for her. When the company was well warmed with wine, Empress He lifted her cup and kneeled respectfully as she addressed Empress Dong. "We 2 women should not concern ourselves with court affairs. In the founding reign of the dynasty, Empress Lu wielded great power, but in the end her clan, 1,000 strong, was extinguished. You and I should seclude ourselves in the palace and leave court business to the great ministers and elder statesmen. The ruling house will benefit. I hope you will give this your consideration." To this challenge, Empress Dong rose angrily. "Your jealousy drove you to poison Beauty Wang. she accused. "Now you have the temerity to say anything you please because your son rules and your brother is in power. But without lifting a finger, I can have the general of the flying cavalry cut off He Jin's head." "I spoke in good faith," responded Empress He hotly. "What gives you the right to lash out at me?" "A lot you know," retorted Empress Dong. "You offspring of butchers and wine merchants." The two queens quarreled back and forth until Zhang Rang persuaded them to return to their chambers. That night, Empress He summoned her brother and described to him the scene at the banquet. Regent He Jin then met with the three elder lords, Grand Commandant, Minister of the Interior, Minister of Works. And the following morning, in accordance with their discussion, a courtier petitioned the emperor not to allow Empress Dong to remain in the palace, on the grounds that she was originally a provincial princess, but to return her to He Jian, her original fief, without delay. The He faction assigned escorts to the rival empress and detailed the palace guard to surround the home of flying cavalry general Dong Chong and demand his insignia. Chong knew that he was trapped and cut his own throat in a rear chamber. The household raised a cry of mourning and the cordon was lifted. The eunuchs Zhang Rang and Duan Gui, foiled by the destruction of Empress Dong's faction, proceeded to cultivate He Jin's brother Miao and his mother, Lady Wu Yang. Plying them with gifts of gold and pearls, the eunuchs had them visit Empress He day and night and gloss their deeds with fine phrases. In this way, the 10 eunuchs regained the privilege of waiting on the emperor. In the 6th month, He Jin had Empress Dong poisoned at the government relay station in Hejian. Her coffin was brought to the capital and buried in the tombs of Wen. On the pretext of illness, Regent He Jin was absent from the ceremonies. The commander of the capital districts, Yuan Shao, visited He Jin and told him, "Zhang Ran and Duan Gui are spreading rumors that you poisoned Empress Dong in order to usurp the throne. Unless you eliminate the eunuchs this time, the consequences will be unspeakable. Early in the last reign, Dou Wu tried to destroy them, but they discovered his plans and killed him instead. Today, you and your brother have the finest commanders and officers in the service. If they are with you, events can be kept in control. Do not let a heaven-sent opportunity slip your grasp." He Jin responded, "This is a matter that bears further consideration." Meanwhile, some of He Jin's men were secretly reporting to Zhang Rang, who in turn informed He Miao, Jin's brother, and also bribed him richly. Miao then went before Empress He and said, "The great mainstay of the new emperor has been guilty of cruel and inhumane conduct. Killing seems to be his sole concern. He has been trying to do away with the 10 eunuchs for no good reason. It is going to lead to chaos." The empress agreed, and when He Jin later declared his intention to liquidate the gilded attendants, she replied, "Supervision of palace affairs by these officials of the women's quarters is a long-standing practice of the Han. With the late sovereign so recently departed, your desire to put the old ministers to death does not show proper respect for the ancestral temple of the ruling house." He Jin, by nature an indecisive man, feebly muttered his agreement and he left his sister's presence. And to Yuan Shao's question, "How fares our cause?" he could only answer, "The queen's mother does not concur. What can we do?" "Indeed," said Yuan Shao sharply. "Let us summon gallants of the realm, march to the capital, and wipe out these capons. Now is the critical moment. Forget the queen mother's disapproval." "A superb idea," He Jin explained, and issued a call to various military stations for troops. But Chen Lin, first secretary to He Jin, objected. "That's not going to work. You know the proverb, you can't catch a sparrow with your eyes shut. Even trivial ends cannot be gained by self-deception. What of affairs of state? Now, General, you have the weight of the throne behind you, and military authority in your hands. You can prance like a dragon and prowl like a tiger. Whatever you wish is yours. You can execute the eunuchs as easily as you can burn a hair in a furnace. Act with lightning speed, with decision and expedition, and the whole world will go along. There's no need to call in outside forces and bring a mob of warriors down on the capital, each with his own ambitions. This is like handing someone a weapon pointed towards yourself. You will fail, and worse, you will create an upheaval." With a laugh, He Jin said, "This weak-kneed scholar understands nothing." Another officer beside He Jin was laughing and applauding. "This really presents no problem," he said. "Why waste so much time discussing it?" The speaker was Cao Cao, and his advice was simple. Indeed, wise counsel can undo the harm of vicious ministers, when and if it is heeded. What did Cao Cao say? Read on.